If you're trying to work out which OBSBOT camera you need for your particular setup, then this video is for you because I have got 5 of the cameras already configured in my studio, and I'm going to show you the difference in video quality and some of the specs to hopefully make that decision much easier. So let's get on with it. Before we get into the side-by-side comparisons of the video quality and all that lovely stuff, let me just show you the specs real quick. I've chosen these cameras because they all support a minimum of 4K at 30 frames per second. Others go up to higher frame rates and things like that. So that's why I wanted to keep these cameras at that spec. And we're going to start with the Meet 2 and we're going to work all the way through to the Tail 2. Now, each of these cameras have a different set of specifications. Some support the pan tilt zoom, some have optical zoom, some have digital zoom, some have voice control, some don't. And you can see from the specs here, the ones that support voice control versus the ones that don't. So for example, if you want a camera with voice control, a little bit of a better image quality and other things like that, then you might want to go for the Tiny 2. And if you want to connect via HDMI, then the first camera in this list is the Tail Air. But just take a look at the specs, take a screenshot, pause this video at this point. You can see all the different specifications, but what I wanted to show you today is that all important video quality and some of the features from each of these cameras. So let's take a look at the video quality side by side of all these cameras. All right, let's take a look at these cameras side by side. Here they all are. So we've got the Meet 2, the Tiny 2 Lite, the Tiny 2, and the Tail Air. First off, these have all been reset to factory defaults. So these images haven't been tweaked in any way. What you see here is what you get. All of them are configured with auto exposure and autofocus. The only thing I have done is disabled the auto tracking features on all of the cameras because I don't want them going crazy and moving around as I move my hands. We'll talk about gesture controls and things like that and the differences between them in a minute. But you let me know straight off in the comments which one you like here. We've got the Meet 2, which is the cheapest camera, as I mentioned, that supports 4K at the moment. It's not a PTZ camera, i.e. it doesn't do pan, tilt, or zoom. It's a static webcam for sitting on top of your laptop, but it's a great image. As you can see, we're going to look at each one of these cameras in a minute individually, and we'll talk about the pricing as well. The Tiny 2 Lite is the first camera in the range that offers pan, tilt, zoom control. There's no voice control or voice gestures on this, but it does offer AI tracking and is a great little camera to get you into that setup. On the bottom left, the Tiny 2 has a slightly bigger sensor. It also is better in low light conditions. It has something called dual ISO. You don't have to worry about what that is. All that does is it reduces any of the grain and the noise associated with low light conditions. So maybe if you are in a low light environment in your studio or you're filming something in low light, then maybe the Tiny 2 is the better option for you. This also has gesture controls from a voice perspective, so you can speak to it, you can tell it to go to sleep, you can tell it to wake up, and you can tell it to track me and things like that. So the Tiny 2 is the first camera in this range that has the voice control, and that's over and above the others. Now, if you want to get out and about, then the Tail Air is the only one here that has a built-in battery. It also offers internal recording via an SD card. It also has pan tilt zoom controls, larger sensor, and optical zoom, and so on. So you can read the specs later and look at the differences between them, but just trying to tell you the differences and some of the use cases for these cameras. So if you want to record sports and you're out and about and you want to be pretty autonomous, then the Tail Air might be the option. It also has NDI control, which means you can send the video signal via your network connection. It also has HDMI out, uses a mini HDMI cable. But I have got videos on my channel that go into a bit more detail for each of these cameras. But let's take a look at them individually, and then we'll go back to all of these cameras and we'll talk about the prices. So let's kick off with the Meet 2. So here is the Meet 2 right here. So again, nothing tweaked with this image. All I've done is just basically set up these scenes in Ecamm and they're all connected, as I said, via USB-C. So this is the Meet 2. I quite like the image from this camera. It's one that I recommend for people that just want to get a better camera than they have in their laptop. I quite like the image. I think it's pretty cool. Let's take a look at the Tiny 2 Lite. So obviously you'll see the difference between the Tiny 2 and the Meet 2. It has a slightly wider field of view. You're not as close, so you can get more of the image in here. Let's just flip back to the Meet 2. It's not that much of a difference. I mean, they are sort of slightly side by side here, and I've got them all lined up. But the Tiny 2 Lite, which is this one here, as I said, is the first camera with the PTZ control. Again, it's a great image. It's a slightly larger sensor, meaning it'll let a little bit more light in here. You might get a little bit more of a blurry background compared to the Meet 2, but that's all in the specs. Let's take a look at the Tiny 2, which is this guy here. I have to keep my eye on which camera. There's that many in front of me. So the Tiny 2 is the one with the voice controls. It's got a slightly different sensor. It is better in low light than the other two cameras, but again, horses for courses. It just depends on what you want from your setup. And then let's go and flip over to the Tail Air. And this is the one with built-in recording, NDI, as I mentioned, and one that you can take out and about with you and set up in that environment. So these are all the cameras side by side. I haven't zoomed in or anything on this. This is just basically the wider field of view that you get with the Tail Air compared to the others. Let's go back to all the cameras. I'll use my pen to write on the screen about the pricing. So the Meet 2 retails at $129. And obviously there's deals and you can get them cheaper depending on what's going on with OBSBOT. So that's $129. The Tiny 2 retails for $159. You can get all the prices and specs off the OBSBOT website. The Tiny 2 is a bit of a bump in price, $299, but you are paying for a larger sensor, voice control, dual band ISO, better in low light, all those kinds of things. And then the Tail Air retails for $499. And you're getting a bump in price there because obviously you've got a built-in battery, you've got external recording, you've got internal recording, all kinds of configuration setups and connectivity with the Tail Air. So those are the sort of 4 cameras that I've got lined up here. I'm gonna clear the drawing. And then let's move on to the Tail 2. Now the Tail 2 is this camera here. This is the flagship camera from OBSBOT. There's a ton of specs with this, just to name a few. Large HDMI connector, SDI, NDI, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, internal recording, battery, 5x optical zoom, larger sensor, dual band ISO, really good in low light, AI tracking version 2. I mean, you are paying a premium for this camera, but it comes with so many specs. Too many to mention here, but I do have a link in the description in this video to a full review of the Tail 2 and why I think it's a great camera. And again, it depends on what you want. It's probably overkill for a studio environment like this, but if you are somebody that's recording sports, high speed supports that you want to track people with, you want to have something in low light, something that's portable, the Tail 2 is probably a great camera for you. Now this retails for $1,199. So obviously there's a big bump in price compared to the others. Let me just write that better. $1,199. Can never write on an iPad properly. So obviously there's a bump in price here, but you are getting a huge amount of camera for the price compared to the others. So it all depends, as I mentioned before, on which camera you want for your particular setup. Now let's just go back and quickly look at the specs. You can see that as the cameras start to increment in price, you do get a lot more features. As I mentioned, all of them feature some form of tracking. Even the Meet 2 has a digital zoom and some form of tracking, or at least auto framing, similar to what you get in some of the Apple systems. All of them support 4K up to 30 frames per second. Some go higher, of course. Obviously the flagship one here, the Tail 2, goes to 4K 60 frames per second, 110 1080p at 120 frames per second, better sensor, better in low light, all that kind of thing. So take a look at the specs, take a look at sort of your environment, and it's more important to sort of understand what you want to use the camera for. There are a lot of different cameras out there in the OBSBOT range, but hopefully this video has helped you make some decisions based on the image quality and some of the features. There's lots of things to choose from here, and again, it all depends on your particular environment. Let me know in the comments which camera you like the look of from this. If there's any questions around the cameras and specs and things like that, then let me know. There's a link in the description to an OBSBOT playlist where I've got a number of videos that go over some of the cameras. As I mentioned, there was a video that I did some time back comparing a couple of the cameras that you see here, but I thought I'd go crazy and show you all the cameras side by side and get them configured in some way. So hopefully this has helped you in some way. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.